And just like that, welcome to another episode of the Indie Escape Network presents Alaska Divided by Zero and Cold Fusion with Daniella and Ray. If Ray wants to show his beautiful face or not, we're no pressure, Ray.
Ray disappeared downstairs so that way he can make snide comments, like he's preparing his puns, so that way he can surprise us.
Awesome. So tell me, what are we doing here tonight?
So tonight we are interviewing a friend and former coworker of mine, Daniel Morgan, with the USGS Wildlife Deterrence and Defense Training Program. We've interviewed him once before, almost a little over a year ago, when we talked about just specifically about bears. But tonight we're going to talk about his work in that program, but also some of the stuff he's been doing with the recent eruption of Mauna Loa over in Hawaii. So for all those people out there who either have become huge fans of the movie Cocaine Bear and are wanting to know what they should do if they, which I'm saying right now, do not start feeding bears hard drugs. But like if they have questions about wildlife and narcotics, or so Dan's our guy to talk to. So I'm looking forward to hear what Dan has to say. From what I already know, he has some opinions on the movie.
I mean, I want to have friends that are rich enough to feed bears narcotics.
I know, right? I mean, narcotics are any other drugs.
Right. So, that is awesome. So one thing I'd like to touch up on real fast is, so guys, anybody in Florida or the Orlando area, Terry Gerald and his cast and crew are going to be at MegaCon Orlando. This is one of the biggest conventions in Florida. We're not only going to have a screening of the movie at 5 p.m. on Saturday, April 1st, there's going to be a Q&A with the crew as well. So if you're in the area, please join us at MegaCon Orlando.
Yeah, and that looks really exciting. I follow Terry and the Harlow's Haunt crew on social media, and it looks like just such a fun movie and such a great concept.
So that means when we do one like in West Palm or Miami, then we may be able to get you guys down here.
We definitely have our eye on coming down there. My family, my parents moved to Ocala, Florida in 2021. And my sister and her husband they are getting ready to move to Orlando. They just got out of the Coast Guard. So we'll probably be coming down there to visit at some point when they all get settled in what they're doing. So
very cool. So something I have to ask you about before we bring your awesome guest on. What's going on with the book?
Well, so I'm writing the third book in my Darkland series, so hoping to self-publish that. I can't go into very much detail, but I am working on a potential offer for one of my romantic suspense books. There's a small publisher that's interested in turning it into a series. So I am currently writing up the proposal because I've written the first book and they're interested in that book, but only as a series. So they want to know what I would do with the book as a series, which I do have an idea. It's just one that I had written the first book. So they are interested in that book as a series, but I have to write the proposal and they'll see what they think of it as a series.
That is freaking amazing.
Thanks. And then I'm still also, if people who follow me on social media, they've seen that I've been putting a lot of teasers for my Gothic horror series set in Dawson City. So that's one that I'm currently still querying for traditional publication. But I feel that probably after, I'm going to give it like another 6 months. And if I don't get any takers, I will probably self-publish that as well. So by this fall, I'll start, if I don't get any hits for traditional publication, I'll start looking at self-publication, and I'll probably start looking for what I call ARC readers, people who want to like get a free copy and then do an honest review. So
very cool. And you can, I don't know if you can see it or not, but in the private chat, Dan said that's awesome news. But I got to pull up one more one comment before we get to Dan. Good evening, friends. Joe looks weird tonight. Okay, is it the glasses? Is it the lack of hair that I no longer have? What? Oh, is it the $40 worth of dye I put on my beard? That may be it. Crickets. Wow. Okay. On that note, Daniella, who do you have joining you tonight?
We have Daniel Morgan, like I said, with the USGS Wildlife Service.
And here we go, Dan. I hope you're ready because I'm just gonna bring you up.
Yeah. Good evening.
What's up, Dan? Long time no see.
No kidding. It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so I'm actually the Alaska Regional Safety Manager for what's called Alaska Region 10 for the U.S. Geological Survey. So that encompasses the Alaska Science Center here in Anchorage, the Water Science Centers in Fairbanks, Juneau, and Anchorage. And then I've got the Volcano Science Centers, and that's from Anchorage, Hawaii, California, Washington, Yellowstone. So,
Wow.
And of course, they're monitoring all the 161 active volcanoes that we have in the United States.
Oh, wow.
At any given time. So that's, they're constantly taking seismic measures and, looking for any kind of mini waves of tectonic activity that might be an indicator to a eruption. So we've come a very long way since Mount St. Helens.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. In fact, I think it was just recently here in Alaska, there has been some activity out on the Aleutian chain.
We have a rare event going on right now where we have 6 simultaneous volcanoes going off at the same time.
Oh, wow.
It's usually one pop and, they kind of take turns. But right now we've got 6 going.
Which are the 6?
Half of them I can't even say the names. They're so prominent in the Aleutians. Yeah, a lot of them are either native or Russian names. So,
right. But yeah, I just remember recently they were seeing a flurry of activity out on the Aleutians, right. And it was rather unique. So I didn't realize that there were 6 going off. But I know
Simi-Sabachdoy is the closest one to Anchorage. So, and the reason why we not only do we try to forecast it, but we also try to. We've got to let the Aviation FAA know what altitudes to fly at because obviously ash and Pele's hair and everything else, you can't be getting that into the engines.
So for people who don't know, explain what Pele's hair is, because I know that was a big deal over on the Big Island recently and on the.
Yeah, we had a lot of Pele hair coming out of Mauna Loa, and that one was Pele's hair is really it's thin hair-like strands, but it's actually volcanic glass. So if you get that in your eyes or lungs, it starts slicing and dicing, and it's definitely not good for you. So you got to take steps to make sure you're not being exposed to it.
So recently, like we were going to jump in the bear stuff, but we ended up jumping in the volcanoes, which is totally cool. Mm-hmm. Recently, you were over like with the eruption of Mauna Loa. What all were you doing over there?
So my capacity. So Mauna Loa is kind of unique because the direction lava goes one direction, it goes into neighborhoods. It goes another direction. It takes out the saddle road, which is the main highway that cuts the island in half. So my place in that is as part of my duties as a regional safety manager, I'm also the aviation manager. So I went over there to help support aviation activities, flight following. We were running 3 to 4 helicopter missions a day. If no one's aware, that's pretty high. The Fissure 3, which was the biggest erupting part of that, was about 11,300 feet. And that's tough on a small helicopter. We usually don't fly up there this time of year. But we were putting out crews of 2 to get sampling, gas monitoring, ash collection, lava collection, all that sort of thing. So we drop them off at various places. And on day 3 of the eruption, we were able to place a camera looking at Fissure 3. So I don't know if anybody ever got the opportunity. And I'm going to put a shameless plug in now while I'm thinking about it, is any of your viewers that don't know what the USGS does, go to usgs.gov. And you'll see the earthquake parts of that, but there's so much more that we do. And you could have seen a live cam of, and it was on YouTube as well, but we put a live cam based on the events of the last Icelandic eruption. The citizens there demanded a live cam, so their scientists went and did it, and I guess we had to follow suit. So it was pretty cool getting it set up and getting the live feed going.
How close did the eruption get to the road? Because the saddle road's like it
made it within a mile and a half.
Oh wow, that's pretty close.
Yeah, they were super worried about that, because that's if anybody's been to the Big Island, that would have been a big deal, and you just can't divert lava like in some movies. It doesn't work.
Yeah, and that was going to be kind of one of my questions is, when you see these movies, like I'm trying to think of some of the disaster movies like Volcano, or the one with Pierce Brosnan. It's like, what are some of the things that you've seen in those movies that are like, oh God, they got this so wrong? And I think one of them is the diverting of the lava.
Yeah, you're not going to. They've had some success with that in Italy on Mount Etna, but it was just barely. I mean, and it took a massive amounts of cat dozers, and that was basically just to kind of get it to kind of course around an old village that was there. But that's the only time that really direction changing is worked. Plus Hawaii, as you probably already know now, that there's a lot of sensitivities about the volcanoes and lava and that sort of thing. So there's a big cultural piece of that.
Right.
So they're not going to tolerate any kind of trying to stop it, move it, anything like that. Not that we would have been able to anyway. It's impossible.
Yeah, it was funny because when Mauna Loa is going off, of course, and sometimes you have like the armchair quarterbacks that are like, well, why don't they just do this? And it was a pretty popular post. Somebody was like, well, why don't they just put a ton of concrete in there and stop it from erupting? And it was like, and a lot of then scientists posted like, that would be a mega bad idea.
You just added a bunch of molten concrete to your little mix of hot rocks,
Yeah, and it's like you're adding concrete, 2, you're blocking its normal path for eruption, so you're letting gas build up.
Yep. And
it's like, if you've ever seen Mount St. Helens, you can say that's why it would be a really bad idea.
Yeah. I don't pretend to be on that level of knowledge. I'm a safety and aviation manager that teaches firearms defense. So I get up close and cool with it. I get to fly up on the mountain and help them out, set some stuff up and observe and stuff. But the real knowledge is there at the observatories.
Yeah, and there's what we really like about being over there is just you can go over there and you can dig into reading about, exploring there's so much that you can't see about the Big Island on just a day. You have so many people that just want to drive down from Kona for like a day, and it's like you miss so much of the island and so much of the park if that's all you do.
And we had to shut down the airspace too, because it never occurred to me, but I guess it makes sense. There's a lot of folks, a lot of disaster tourists that want to go see something blow up, and I just was kind of shocked at how many people actually went there to see all this happen. And we had to shut down the airspace because it was too complicated to fly with all the tourist helicopters trying to see something cool,
Right.
That did not make us popular.
Oh, I'm sure. At the same time, it's like, but you gotta, for safety reasons, it's like, yeah, you can't, have all these different people on different courses. Actually, the funny thing is, even just flying home from up north this last time, coming back from Galbraith, So we're flying on just a small de Havilland, right? Our crew change plane. And we're coming into Anchorage, and I'm looking down as we're coming in on our approach, and underneath us is a 777.
Jesus.
And it was one of those ones. The pilot at the last minute, our pilot turned off course, and he was like, "Hey, everybody, sorry, the tower here goofed up. They thought that they could try and land us both, that we would be able to land ahead of the 777, and it's like we're too small. We can't, with the winds here in Anchorage, we can't go fast enough. We can't control our speed. I had to divert." But yeah, it's like, it's one of those ones, because you know how it is coming into Anchorage. You're looking down, you're seeing the Cook Inlet, you're seeing the tide flats. It looks really cool. It's like, but it's very unsettling to look down and see a 777 coming up behind you and under you. It's like,
right.
I don't think they're going to pull off this landing. And it's one I couldn't imagine having, 10 helicopters in the air. We fly helicopters up and down the line up there at Galbraith, but they have to have, specific conditions. They've got to, so I couldn't imagine, trying to manage all this other nonsense with people trying to sightsee.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. And, people don't regard barriers or anything like that. It's up to them. It's the thing about lava is, yes, you can outrun it. It's not like you're going to be overcome in like some of these movies, right? It's just, there are other hazards. There's SO2 gas. There's, like we talked about, Pele's hair. There's, if you get close enough to the Fissure 3 was popping 300 to 800 feet at some points for the first few days. So that's throwing out rocks. That's doing a lot of stuff, so good stuff.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying it's good stuff to see, but nothing you want to play with.
Right. And yeah, where we're building, so we're building in the little development we're right down the street from the entrance to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And for us, the big hazard is not lava flow. The big hazard is bog. There's bog. There could be potentially falling ash or Pele's hair if there were to be a big eruption in the crater. Just because we're topographically higher, they like when we had, and then also fissures opening up. You could have a fissure there in the road. There's more of a hazard from like the road cutting us off from a fissure opening than really, there's not a really big hazard of lava flow where we are. It's more that you could have falling ash, catching things on fire. You could have bog. And it's funny how many people I've talked to that are like, "What's bog?" And it's like,
yeah.
Well,
and I think where you're at too. I mean, I was just there teaching wilderness first aid, CPR, AED, that sort of thing. And there's a group there right by you. That's the Pacific Northwest. What are they? Ecology group. So they study bats and mosquitoes and frogs and all kinds of other business. And matter of fact, they're probably 15 minutes away from where your house is. And I can tell you one of your other hazards there is definitely 15 inches of rain per day for however many days you have that.
Flooding,
that was ridiculous. Had one day of semi-sun out of 10.
Yeah, we're in the rain shadow of, they measure their rain there in feet. And and they have where we're building, there's no municipal water. Right. And so we'll be doing water collection for the house. And so yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's challenging. When we were over there, like we missed you by like a week or so, coming back and forth. But it was funny because we were over there the first part of the trip, and it was fairly clear and it was fairly nice weather. But it was like the last 5 days, that's when it started to just pour.
Yeah.
And then it poured for weeks afterwards. They had to just kind of suspend excavation work because he couldn't move that dozer. It was like, and you don't want to try and move the dozer when it's pouring that hard. But finally the weather has changed again, and it's nice. But yeah, when it pours there, it's insane. It's just, you can see it just coming down in sheets.
Yeah. But other than that, volcanoes. What else we got? Yeah.
Cool.
Again, I wanted to put that plug in, encourage all the listeners to go to usgs.gov and look up all the hazards, because if you want to know what the water situation near your place is, we actively monitor all moving water throughout the United States. So if you want to know in real time what your water situation is, you can find a stream gauge near you and kind of see what it's doing. We also have a whole ton of live cams for different things. So for volcanoes, for rivers, for you name it, there's lots of live cams sitting out there.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned the water because I live in Alaska now, but where I grew up down in the Mojave Desert. And so a lot of people don't associate the desert with moving water, but they have some of the best swift water rescue teams are out of the Mojave Desert because of flash flooding. There's,
Right.
When we do get rain, it floods. And so the USGS is part of tracking those riverbeds, those dry riverbeds that flood.
Right. And I'll be putting on 2 swiftwater rescue classes here in about 3 months.
Oh, yeah? Oh, cool.
Yeah. We'll throw them in Eagle River and let them fish themselves out.
Oh, man. But I'm sure with all the, all the snowpack and the rain they're getting down in California right now, it is going to be an epic flood year.
Well, that's one of the other things we do. So we monitor all natural hazards, and flooding is one of them. So flooding and landslides. So I think you're right. I think this year's going to be pretty epic with flooding. And on top of that, with the forest fires that they've had, you've got a pretty dynamic situation now. You don't have that the plants and trees in place that would normally support that soil. And now you've got all this snowpack, and now you've got all this dynamic movement. It's going to be, I think we're going to see some pretty decent landslides.
Yeah, my mom growing up always called California the slip and slide bake and shake state.
Oh yeah.
It seems to be cyclical. We get, we have drought, and then we have fires, and then we have epic rain, and then we have an earthquake to make everything just slide.
Your fault lines down there are pretty they're wound really tight right now, and there's going to have to be a release at some point, either the Cascades faults or the what's the other big one in Southern California? San Andreas, yeah.
Yeah, so
we'll see which one pops first.
It's been a while, so it's kind of scary.
Absolutely.
But kicking over to a lighter topic, is your other area of expertise, wildlife defense training. Because one of the things we were talking about, like for this show, is of course, cocaine bear is on a lot of people's minds as being kind of a surprise hit. Here they took this semi-true story of a poor little black bear back in 1985 that happened on 40 pounds of cocaine and ate it, and it died. But now they've made a parody movie about it. And I think you said that came up at your recent training.
Yeah, our Firearms program met up in Phoenix here a couple of weeks ago, and I really lobbied hard to try to make that part of our initial training video for our students, and they all voted me down. So it's not for lack of trying.
Oh man.
I know, right? So now I get to only show the trailer.
Yeah, it's like I have yet to see it. I'm hoping to see it like this time while I'm home, because like I said, it kind of came out while I was up north at work, and but I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty hilarious movie. I mean, so far, when I looked it up, it's grossed 78 million globally, 53 domestic. People are joking.
Didn't it beat Ant-Man?
I believe so.
Or at least for a while.
Yeah, I think it's so far topped Ant-Man, but I'd have to look that up. Maybe someone in the Escape knows the numbers on that one. But of course, everyone's joking. It's like, okay, great. What are the spin-offs going to be? And
fentanyl frogs.
Fentanyl frogs. When I mentioned, I posted this show, one of my friends was like, "Oh, I can't wait to see PCP Walrus."
Oh, geez. You don't want to see a PCP walrus.
Well, but like, what would be the scariest thing? Like, what would be
the good news is you can outrun a walrus. You can't outrun a bear.
That's true. Oh.
Crackhead squirrel. That would be scarier.
You know,
small, fast.
Meth marmot.
That has, it's funny you mentioned the squirrels, because there was recently like some story about a woman that had trained squirrels to attack her ex-boyfriend, her ex-husband.
Good Lord.
She had like fed them or done stuff to them and got them to, like, whenever they saw her ex, to attack. And I'm just like,
I can see why he's an ex. He made a good decision.
Daniella, there's got to be a nut joke there somewhere. Come on.
There you go. Yeah, I suspect there is.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, once again, please, if you're watching, do not feed wild animals hard drugs. This show is not condoning. In fact, if you watched our previous show about bears, don't feed the bears anything. As the saying is, a fed bear is a dead bear. Please don't feed. We try not to habituate wild animals to humans, because that's really bad. But please, especially, don't feed the wild animals drugs
or anything.
Or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not all what is it, Yogi and Boo Boo guys.
Well, a couple years ago, we had a really bad summer here in Anchorage and the greater Anchorage area, where we had 5 or 6 maulings in one summer, which was a little high for a metro area. I want to say 3 of those resulted in deaths. And this last year, we had a sergeant out at Joint Base Elmendorf Fort Rich, was setting up a land nav course and came up on I want to say she was black bear. I don't recall at the moment, but I think she was a black bear. But he got mauled and killed.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was pretty scary.
So being situationally aware, knowing where you're at, having your alert condition up and not in the white, right? When we talk about white, yellow, orange, red, being alert and knowing what you're up, especially going through brush. I mean, they were kind of poking through alders, and bears. It's like they don't see the alders. We get hung up in it. We don't have an easy time moving through it. But bears can get through it so fast, and then they're on you.
Well, I think the other thing, a lot of like what we're finding out where we have our cabin in Chicken. So like in 2004, they had the Taylor Complex fire and everything burned, right? So now here it is, almost 20 years later, the brush is starting to grow back. And we've done a pretty good job, like for about the 5 acres around the cabin, keeping a fire defensible space and keeping it cleared. But it's amazing how, we've had a couple bears come into that space. And when they come in, it's like, okay, you see them, and we've scared them off. We actually took a shot at, because it was obviously like an aggressive bear. But it's amazing how fast they disappear into the brush. Like when they, and we have, the willows, we have the willow out there. As soon as they get in that willow, they disappear. And it's the same with the moose. It's amazing how well they camouflage, almost like it's nature. They just disappear, and it's like, you can't see them, but they could still be there.
So you remember Steve, who I was on here with last time? He's the state geologist, right. Retired state geologist, and he had trained a class last year that I assisted him in. But he trained a, I think they were state geologists, and I call him a kid. He's 20 years old, but a young kid working for the state. Was up, and a week after that went up to Chicken.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, he said, Dan, it was the craziest thing I ever saw. Bears usually have a way of acting, right? It's pretty, at least somewhat predictable. If a bear stands up and is looking at you, it's curious, right? He wants to know what you're doing, who you are, or what you are.
Right.
Are you a threat, or are you food?
Right.
Sometimes they'll look at you, kind of give you a sideways glance and act like they're ignoring you, but they're
Check me
they're
out.
watching you, but they're trying to get a little closer so they might be able to do a charge or a bluff charge, whatever they're going to do. He said, Dan, this one stood up. We locked eyes, and he was immediately running towards me. Didn't even, and that's pretty uncharacteristic. You don't generally see that. Usually there's some kind of gap there, like, kind of a thought process. And he's like, he stood up, locked eyes, and went for it.
Wow.
He said he didn't remember he pulled his 44 Magnum. He remembers the first shot, but he doesn't remember the other 5.
Wow.
And the bear came to rest within 10 feet. And when you see the picture of this young guy and the bear, A, it was a damn big bear. And B, you could just see, if you've ever seen anybody go into adrenaline dump, this kid was all the way in it. And you could just tell by the look on his face that he was still going through the adrenaline dump that he had for that event. So all good hits, and he stayed alive. But yeah, that was pretty amazing to see.
Well, that's like the one we had. Oh goodness, it was, what summer was it? It was a couple of summers ago. I want to say it was 2017 or 2018. We were out at the cabin, and we were installing some flooring, and Ray's dad was out there with us. And so I know what day it was, because it was August 10th, which is the first day you can actually legally take a bear, because that's also Ray's dad's birthday. And it just so happened, like I said, we were installing the flooring, and the bartender down there had, Susie, who she used to own the bar, but now her son owns it, had made Shep a pie. So we were cleaning up for the day to go into town and get the pie. Well, Ray and his dad were packing up the saw, and I walk out on the deck, and there's a full-grown brown bear about 50 yards from the cabin, because we had a tent platform down there, and he was nosing the tent platform. And I was just like, oh shit, and so I'm trying to, tell Ray, without startling the bear, like, because I know Ray wants to actually shoot one, like get a nice bear skin rug for the cabin. I'm like, hey Ray, just in this kind of voice, hey Ray, there's a bear. And Ray's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I'm kind of losing my mind here. I'm like, Ray, there's a bear. And the second time I said bear, that bear knew its name because it looked right at me. And I'm just like, oh no.
Because what do people say? Hey bear, hey bear, hey bear.
Hey bear, hey bear.
Right.
And so it looked right at me, and Ray gets up on the deck next to me. What are you talking about? And that's why I just lost my shit. I said, Ray, there's a mother right there. And I'm pointing at it, and that bear reared up on its hind legs. And Ray was like, oh, and grabbed the gun. And the bear was kind of like, you could tell it was deciding, do I charge him or do I go? And the way our property is, it's like on a ridge, and we've done a lot of earthwork to kind of tier things. As Ray took a shot, it jumped, so he missed it, and it took off. But we kind of scanned and made sure, like we didn't wound it. We wanted to make sure either it was a clean shot. Well, when we went to the bar that night, we found out it's become a nuisance bear. It had broken into like our neighbors across the way. It had broken into another guy, killed his dog. But fortunately, like the next day, it down by the river, one of the mining camps along the river, it started bothering them, and they got it. So they finally somebody fight.
It's too bad it has to go that route, but it's got to be done.
Yeah, it was a shame in that sense, because we've had other bears come through that were like, obviously like, hey, we're checking things out, and as soon as you like made a noise or it saw you, they just took off. They're like, oh, we don't want anything to do with this. But yeah, that bear had become accustomed to people. I mean, it had become accustomed enough that if you even took out a gun, it knew what it was and would run.
Well, the city bears, and when you have I had a cabin up on Alexander Creek for a lot of years, and I had a bear eat the seat off my tractor, amongst other things. But I always had my nail boards down, so my nails sticking straight up on the boards going up to the door, so he didn't try to reef open a door. But he was quite the pain in the ass. But the city bears here in Anchorage, they don't care. Did I send you the video of me chasing one in my robe with a shotgun?
No, I didn't see that. I just saw the ones back and forth, like in front of your property there. That
No,
like,
I had one trying to break into my truck, and I grabbed the shotgun. I was just had my robe on. And he was being obstinate and not paying attention. I'm yelling at it. I had beanbags, so I didn't want to put him down.
right.
You know, it's not his fault. He's had an easy run, but I was definitely going to beanbag him. And yeah, it didn't have to, but that was quite the little episode on my security cameras.
That's great. You'll have to send that later so I
Yeah, I
could.
will.
That is like the other funny thing too. I don't think like when people are like, "Well, how did this bear just like eat all that cocaine?" It's like I don't think people realize bears will pretty much they'll try and eat anything just
Yeah.
because they're seeing what is it like. Can I eat it? We had a
Yep.
bear out in Chicken eat a thing of hand sanitizer.
Oh God.
Yeah, and then we had another one. It didn't eat it. Like we had, next to our pit toilet, we keep a thing of lime to put in the pit toilet.
Right.
It bit into the thing of lime trying to figure out what it was.
Yep. Very curious. Very
Yeah.
curious.
And I think a lot of people don't realize just how curious they are.
Yeah. Well, that's why I try not to go lethal on them right away. I mean, if I
Right.
can get them to move on. I mean, Odin, my big male dog here, he treed. So when you look at the difference between brown bears and black bears, black bears will tree their cubs and then run. That's their defense mechanism. The moms will. Dads, the males are pretty solitary, but the females will tree the cubs and then haul ass and just come back later to collect them up. Browns, not so much. Coastal, grizzly, whatever name you want to give it. It's that's a whole different way of dealing with that one. And they're not going to tree their cubs.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, out in Chicken, what we've experienced is pretty much the bears that haven't become habituated. As soon as they like hear a person, see a person, they turn and run. They're just like, this
I
is
think
not.
there's plenty more people there that'll take a shot at them more so than elsewhere.
Yeah, they just tend to be a little sketchier. And out there, actually, what scares me more is the bear or the moose.
So I'm working in my office or my home office here, and I hear a little noise here yesterday, and I open the window, my blind, and there's a big old moose ass right at me. It's just he kept bumping my window. I'm like, stop, man! I was afraid he's going to break through because the snow is so high up here in South Anchorage that it's still. I mean, it's melting off at a good rate, but it's still. He's up there dancing, and all the moose right now are pretty stressed out because of all the snow we've had.
Yeah.
So they're being a little bit more belligerent. I've found out. I think I've had more moose interactions, negative moose interactions this year than I've had the whole time I've been in Alaska.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's because they're stressed out and they're hungry.
They're hungry. Yeah, they're definitely having a harder time finding something to eat because the snow's so deep.
It's hard for them to get around in the deep snow.
Yeah. We have like I think a lot of people also don't realize like the moose tend to come back to the same places.
Oh yeah, I get the same mama that comes in calves right around the property here just about every year.
Yeah, we have a female that pretty much calves in our backyard every year, but what she also does is like so she'll ditch the last year's calf, and then that calf is really pissed off and mad, and so we're dealing with one moose that's running around the neighborhood like it. We had an electrical box in our front yard and like attacked it because it was I guess it figured it was the reason why Mama ditched it. And so it would run around it and, you just didn't want to be around this moose because it can't figure out why Mom doesn't like it anymore.
Well, and with all that, it's like, I think this summer, my prediction is as the snow melts, we're not going to see a whole lot of moose because they're going to move into the trees.
Yeah.
They're going to get away from the houses and stuff. We'll see them this fall again, but I mean, I don't think we're going to see a lot of moose. We'll see a lot of bear.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try something. I've been wanting to do this for the last 3 years and I'm finally to a point where I can, and that's put in a chicken coop. Problem is bear proofing it and getting it set up. So
oh man,
that'll be the challenge. I might have to call on your electrical expertise.
Yeah.
Help a brother out because it's got to be electrified. There's just no way.
Yeah, it's got to be electrified, and it's got to be almost like you actually almost want to put like a cattle fence around it.
I've got a pretty robust metal dog kennel that I'm going to use.
Yeah, because you want the bear to like sense the electricity before he even gets to it, and like back away, because you just don't want him, like you mentioned the bears and like the chicken coop. There was a guy that I work with up north, and he lives down in Idaho, and he got, he had almost like one of those motion cams on his chicken coop, and the motion cam picked up a cougar going for his chicken coop, and he was like, "Oh no, I have no more chickens now." He's like, "I just know, like."
And that's my other we've got a lynx family that it hits the south side here really hard. So neighbors on both sides of me lost chickens last year to bears, and had another one up the road a ways lost chickens to the lynx. And they can jump vertically 6 feet with no problem. So it's they're super agile and patient.
Oh yeah, and so that's why you want the type of electric fence that they use for cattle, because what that does is they sense the electricity like on their whiskers and stuff, and that deters them because it hurts before they even get close. So you want to keep them from even getting close to the fence. Like, so you put that around as like the initial deterrent. So it starts to hurt their whiskers and their face. Because that's actually what stops cattle, right? Because cattle will just like plow right through the fence. You're actually trying to keep them away from the fence. So that's kind of the same thing with the chicken coop like that.
Well, I'm glad I didn't get it put up this year, because after I went to Mauna Loa, I came back to those 4 big snowstorms we had, and I'm trying to dig, and I caught pneumonia. I was down for like 4 weeks with that. And I was like, man, thank God that we don't have chickens, because I don't know. My wife would probably have divorced me at that point.
She'd have been like, I'm done. Screw this. Man.
She's like, yeah, you're on your own here with your chickens.
Oh, that's awful. I'm sorry to hear about the pneumonia.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a rough run, but I'm all over it now, and I'm gonna get my damn chicken coop set up.
There you go. There you go. Well, what kind of chickens?
I've had longhorns, or what do they call those? What kind of bird was damn it, longhorn?
Leghorn.
Leghorn. It's a leghorn. I've had those before, and I don't like them because they're so chicken shit, if I can cuss on here. They're so skittish. They're just really not a fun bird. But then I had some Long Island Reds. This is when I lived out in Wasilla, and really love those. So rock bards, Long Island Reds is, I think, and they're hardy, and they're fat and sassy, and I can sit out there and drink a scotch and watch those guys for hours.
Yeah.
And let them open them. I let them into the garden and let them eat. Once you train them to eat slugs, they'll go in there and go ripping your slugs off all your vegetables. So nice. Little dinosaurs, and I had no idea, but they also eat mice and voles.
I didn't know for sure, but it doesn't surprise me either. They're pretty opportunistic.
It did. First time I saw it, I was like, "You got to be kidding me! That's the craziest thing I ever saw." And man, they did it right there. No worries. Nice. Yeah.
So the other thing I was thinking is, like, now that tourism is getting back to normal. Like you look at the lower 48 with what's going on with like people in the buffalo, the buffalo or bison are just wailing on people because they're doing stupid stuff. I worry that we're going to see more incidents with bears and moose and stuff up here because we're going to see more tourists.
We'll see. We got a little World War kind of kicking up a little bit. I don't think I want to be far from Alaska, and I don't know if people want to be going out on. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's only getting dicier. There is.
It'll be interesting to see what how tourism does this summer, because they seem to still be traveling at least within the U.S.
They are, but I think we've had some bank failures, we've had some economic upheaval, we've had a lot of weird stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be a little dampener on tourist season. But I'll bet you a bottle of Redbreast.
I'll take that bet. I'll take that bet. Yeah, but it's just been interesting, like, in the last year or so, to just see all the people just doing stupid stuff when it comes to animals. It's like, that's like, especially like I said, down in the lower 48 with the bison and stuff. It's like, that's a huge animal.
And I don't understand that. I was stationed down there in the military way back in the day. And I camped. I took my VW bus and my bike to the Badlands in South Dakota, and camped and biked and whatnot. And I got caught in a buffalo herd. And just the way they were moving and where I was at, I was pretty much cut off. And I had to sit there for like an hour, I guess, with my back against the post as these guys rolled by both sides of me. And, they stopped, and they didn't really mess with me, but they could. It sucked. It was really uncomfortable. It was hot. It was dusty. It stunk. And I'm like, I can't leave because I don't want to get ground down, So
yeah,
definitely don't get caught in that position.
No, that's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. I took a bunch of notes for like things to talk about, and of course, like every episode, I never even get through half the things I think I'm going to talk about, which is cool. It's like, but one of the things, like when you mentioned your wildlife defense, and it was like you said that bears, walrus, and otters, and I was like, yeah, I've heard about otters being really aggressive, like when you're in the water, or like I've heard of them like climbing on kayaks or attacking people in kayaks.
Well, otters are, and it's weird, how your life works, right? So I was a military working dog handler for many years, right? And part of the training you go to be a trainer is you got to go spend a week at SeaWorld, and you get assigned a behavioral trainer at SeaWorld, and I got Otter Girl. I wanted killer whale girl, and I got Otter Girl. And they were training these killer whales to pee in a bucket. I mean, it was just crazy stuff they were training. But I got the otter trainer, and she's actually really cool and taught me a ton. And one of the things she told me early on, this was back in the 90s, and she's like, you don't ever want to get bit by an otter because their bites are so nasty because what they're eating, the clams and the I don't know if they eat oysters. I know they eat clams, but the stuff they eat, it just creates a bacteria in their mouth that if you get bit, it can be really bad.
Right.
Fast forward to my current job, where I've got a team of scientists who do nothing but otter research and otter counts and otter habitat, that sort of thing. And so there's a requirement for them to go out and capture so many of these and, take some blood, take some samples and that sort of thing. And they've created some really interesting ways of catching these animals. And one of them was to where, and I don't know what the specific name of it is, but it's a scuba set that doesn't blow bubbles and alert the otter you're coming up, so that they can swim up underneath it and use a special cage. You know how they sleep on their backs, right? And the water, and slap them up in the cage and take them in and get them do whatever tests or whatever they're going to do, and then they can release them.
Okay.
Yeah. So from my safety manager side, I'm just sitting there saying, you're doing what now? You're swimming up underneath them, capture them in the box, and doing your thing. And they're like, yep, that's how we do it. And I'm like, all right. Don't get dead.
Boy.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
Oh, it's nuts.
Yeah, because I was reading up on them, because it's like, okay, they're members. They're like sub members of the weasel family. They're the what is it? I wrote it down. They're Lutrinae, aquatic, semi-aquatic, and marine subclass of the Mustelidae family, which the Mustelidae family encompasses weasels, badgers, et al. And so it's like, yeah, here in Alaska, of course, you hear all the stories about things like marmots, ermine. Martin, ermine, and others. And in fact, one of Ray's friends, or one of our friends out in Chicken, if you've been out to Chicken, haven't you?
Oh yeah.
So you've been to the post office, or the postmistress Robin and her husband Dick have been out there for like 30 some odd years running the post office. And her husband runs a trap line. And one winter they were out they took like the super cub out to go pick up the animals that were in the traps, and they got a bunch of marten. And they're flying back. Well, it turns out one of the marten wasn't dead.
Oh, damn.
And so they're flying, and the marten comes back awake. So here they are. It's like two big dudes in a super cub with a marten that's come back to life and is pissed off while they're trying to fly. They're somewhere in between eagle and chicken flying. And this thing is all over tearing up the aircraft. It's just like,
well, we had I don't know if you were there, but we had a ermine. I think it was an ermine that got into the Prudhoe Bay Operations Center camp. And we had a hell of a time trying to run it. I'm not sure if it was an ermine or if it was I want to say it was an ermine.
Well, I've seen them there at the very end when I know we had one get into MCC, like at Projects Ring there.
Oh, that wouldn't surprise me. But this one I specifically remember because it was it somehow made it into the kitchen and
oh man,
at PBOC, and everyone was up and trying to capture this thing and everything else. It turned out to be quite the hunt, quite the clown show.
That's awesome. Well,
yeah.
When I first started up there at Galbraith, my first week, an ermine got into the office space at Pump 3 because we don't know what exactly happened. Somebody had dropped a piece of bacon in one of the offices, and an ermine got in and found it.
Hell yes.
And so it was just sitting there having a grand old time, like just gnawing on this bacon. And so, of course, somebody sees it. And now it's like these guys are trying to catch this ermine. Of course, they're like
so
flexible, fast.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this thing was evading capture. And I think eventually they found a way to kind of lure it back outside. But it was just not having it. It was not going to get caught.
That's awesome.
And I posted it on social media one time because it was a great picture because it's like on the like little file folders, and it's just like peering over at everybody, like looking for more food. And it's like, just like,
well, it hit the gold mine there.
Yeah, but it just had this crusty old piece of bacon, and it's just like, yeah, this is awesome. Nice. It's just like, oh,
very cool.
And out in chicken, we had some like, we had like a wood pile behind the kitchen of like all of our leftover scraps. And that's usually, I wash my dishes on a picnic table out there right now. And I had like a bunch of washcloths that my mom made for washing the dishes. Well, a bunch of the ermine or marten stole all the washcloths.
It's awesome nesting material.
Oh yeah, it's like they have, and I've told my mom now, it's like, okay, Mom, I need you to like crochet me like a bunch more because the ermine have stolen them all. Like they just, we left one time, we came back, and it's like, where are all the washcloths? And it's like, oh yeah, you can see bits and pieces of them like under the wood pile, and it's like, I'm not getting them back. They can have them. It's like,
well, some ermine family has the best nest in the whole ermine community.
Really?
Yep. With all your rags.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. But they're neat little critters. Definitely.
No, we deal with a ton. Birds, the walrus studies are, that's quite the interesting thing. Over in our office, we have a real life picture of a full walrus, so you can just see the size, because so few people see these in the natural, or out in the wilderness, that we lay it down and bring folks through, and you lay next to it, and they're so big, they're massive.
Well, yeah, it's like, you think that I looked it up. It's like their average male can weigh between 1,700 and 3,700 pounds and be upwards of 9 to 12 foot long. It's like, and yeah, on land they can be slow, but in the water, they can move. And
I don't recall any known injuries due to contact with a walrus, though, so that's good news.
Oh, okay. So, well, from what I understand, isn't it like, when like the walruses all get together, it's usually there's problems because they're startled and they can what's the word? They get panicked and they start to
Do a little
they start to try and like panic and rush back.
Trampling each other kind of in their own walrus
trample
way.
and get back to the water. So you definitely don't want to be around them when they do that.
Yeah, no, it's our folks would never get. You try to isolate one. They used to use crossbows to try to get a sample, not kill it. It's just
right.
So a big portion of our folks' jobs are to collect samples. So that means you have to do some what's called animal capture activity. Darting a polar bear from a helicopter, or
I was gonna say, how do you capture a walrus?
You hit it with a dart and you drug it, and then you go get all your data, and then it'll wake up and all's good.
Okay, I was gonna say, but like, what if you drug it and it tries to go into the water?
That would suck, but I think these guys are pretty doggone smart. They've pretty much worked everything out.
Okay, so they've got it down to a science of like, oh, little Mr. Walrus is there, kind of hanging out on the beach with his harem, so we'll drug him now.
And I think mostly I think their research is primarily numbers. How many are there, and the ecology around them. Is their habitat degrading? Is it? Is there any problem with the ecology of the area they're living in, that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm.
So they got lots to study. They don't necessarily need to be darting walruses all the time. Thank God.
Right on, yeah. Because like I said, they're just such big animals. Kind of like polar bear. They're just such big animals. And, but I'm looking at the clock. We're getting close on time.
I'm looking at the clock. Yeah, I'm supposed to say that, not you.
Oh, okay.
Well, I do want to say that, Joe, we will let you into the Noble Beard Club as soon as your dye wears off.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll start working on my beard for the next show.
No.
And tell Ray as well. I mean, we can wait a few years, Ray. Or not. Okay. No, nothing. All right.
No, nothing.
Wow. All right. So Dan, I'm always fascinated when you come on here, and it's taking me back to the days as a kid, sitting in front of the console TV and watching Wild Kingdom, which doesn't exist anymore. So when you're on here, it's an absolute pleasure. We greatly appreciate you. If people wanted to follow any of your work, or again, anything you wanted to get plugged?
I'm on LinkedIn. Dan, I think it's Daniel Morgan on LinkedIn. Honestly, I don't. But no.
Fair enough. Hey, I'm the same way. It's like, what the hell is LinkedIn? Is the same as my other? Yeah, because I mean, there's there's a professional aspect I have to kind of abide by. So it's not but have to abide by. But I keep work stuff on LinkedIn, and I keep cool stuff on Instagram. And I can't even tell you what my Instagram is, to be honest with you. I think it's Rubber Tramp 907, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds right. I think that's
is that it? Rubber Tramp 907.
Rubber Tramp 907.
That's from my wandering days when I was living in my camper, traveling all over the lower 48.
So do you have pictures of all this on your Instagram?
Oh yeah, quite a bit of it, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, pictures of his of the volcano, pictures of the dogs, the big dogs, Odin and Odin judging.
Oh yeah. Oh, you saw that. That was I love that picture. Lots of moose, lots of bears. I think my robe, my chasing a bear in my robe with a shotgun's on there somewhere. Flying around Mauna Loa. Lots of good stuff.
That is awesome. So again, Dan, it was amazing having you on again. It brings me back, and we need cable television is killing us all. We need those like basic 4 channels again with, every Sunday there was animal shows and stuff and educational stuff, and people watched it.
Yeah. And then they're like, watch the cheetah sneak up on the zebras. I was like, holy, yeah. I never got tired of those shows. There is one, if you get a chance to watch it, it was made by PBS, and it's about a guy that went out into the Alaska bush for a year or two, and he built his own. He only went out with an axe and a couple tools, and he built a cabin, and he built a fireplace, and it's just amazing. They did such an amazing job with it. And if you get a chance to look that up, it's pretty addictive, because you're like, I can't stop.
About Dick Pernacki?
Yep.
Yeah, he went out there for he intended to only go out there for a year, and he ended up staying 30.
Made the hinges to his doors with a hatchet. I mean, watching this guy's skill sets are just off the charts, and it's super, super cool to watch.
And you see, people are commenting, they all remember this stuff. Yes, Ken, Mutual, Omaha, Wild Kingdom,
yeah.
And what do we have? Alone in the Wilderness.
Yep. That is an amazing series. I'd encourage anybody to watch it. I'd make it mandatory in schools.
Yeah, it's a wonderful show. Like, it's wonderful to watch. And he and his brother filmed it themselves. It was a home movie that they filmed of him building the cabin, and his research he did, like, because he every day would take temperatures of air temperatures, water temperature of the lake. And for 30 years, he kept that data. And so the National Park Service, uses that for now their current trends and, like how things have changed over time for out there at, was it Twin Lakes, right?
Yeah.
And in Lake Clark National Park.
No, that's awesome. So, yeah, you're right, Joe. I miss those days.
All right. Again, we ran a little over. I do apologize, Dan. We very much thank you for your time, and we definitely hope to have you on again, sir.
Hey, I love talking to you guys, and it's always a pleasure. So anytime, invite me back, and I'll see what I can do.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Dan.
Good night. I love having this guy on.
Yeah, it's great.
So, okay, we are running a little over, but we still got to do the whole plug thing. So I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, if this is your first time tuning in, please go to the India Escape Network Facebook page, Instagram, help me out, YouTube, Twitter,
TikTok.
That's the other one. Yes, please. And Daniella, let's do those books again, please.
So you can find my books, The Darkland and The Devil's Valley, on Amazon. You can follow me on almost all my social media accounts, are DM Shepard 13 on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. I've kept them all pretty much the same, but yeah, you can find me on Amazon as well. And yeah, so that's what we've got going. And thanks again for watching.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. Is Mr. Hawaiian shirt next to you, or is he still
actually he's sitting over on the couch, so summon him over. Come over here.
Please, kind sir. And when can we get Cold Fusion?
We will be back for next week.
Nice. And where can we find you and your amazing work on social media?
Right now, you can just find me on Facebook, and that's at Ray Shepard.
All right. You guys got to... Oh, wait a minute. No, nobody wants to see that. What the heck? Daniella, what did you do?
I didn't do anything.
Yeah, you broke it.
Well...
Damn it, Ray.
Yeah, it's all my fault. Yeah. I have a face that does that to cameras.
Oh, and Dan is saying in the private chat that is a stunning shirt, young man.
Oh, good. Very good.
All right. So we are going to get this closed out. Daniella, close us out.
Well, thanks everyone for watching the Alaska Divided by Zero on the India Escape Network. And if you liked what you saw tonight, please like and subscribe on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Thanks again.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
See you next week.